I came into Brown with a plan, and that plan changed. This isn't as much my line as it's all of ours. We were gently nudged away from one concentration when we couldn't even sit through the introductory course's introductory lecture. And then we stumbled into the most unexpected of disciplines when a professor's shopping period pitch inexplicably spoke to us. The question nagging at each of us now is, does the Brown mentality, the figure it out as you go along approach, translate into the real world? For the past 4 or so years, the Brown community has unconditionally trusted us. As President Paxson described earlier this year, Brown students are trusted to conduct themselves with constructive irreverence. We challenge assumptions. We bend rules. We demand overrides. In short, we're irreverent, disregarding the linear path in favor of our path. And we have, or we had, the luxury of being so bold because our president, our professors, and our peers trusted us. Well, the real world threatens to be far less trusting. In early September, as much of the Brown community gathered on this very green for convocation, I was facing a brown bag lunch at a lonely desk in Washington. I spent my fall semester on a leave of absence, interning in DC, and on that particular day, the second of my new job, I was still navigating lunch break protocol. Could I go for some comfort food, or was I expected to go for something healthy? Was I expected to work through lunch, or could I talk with friends? So I'd settled on trying to look busy as I ate my lunch alone, and I felt incredibly uncomfortable. And this rather pitiful scene conveniently reflects just how down I felt at that moment. The catalyst for my woes? A piece of advice I'd received from a superior the previous day. Keep your head down and do good work, she'd said. As good as that piece of advice was, as good as it is, it just wasn't for me. For the past 3 years, I've been unconditionally trusted. We've all been unconditionally trusted. Trusted to figure Brown out as we went along, trusted to come up with our own method when the existing one didn't quite work, trusted to understand that failure wasn't an option. No credit was. And so I witnessed many months before graduation, real-world values being at odds with ours here at Brown. Keeping your head down, it implies insecurity, yet the success of our Brown educations hinged on us participating confidently in the process. We likely made more decisions in our first semester here at Brown than we did throughout our entire high school experiences. And I'd venture to guess, if you're anything like me, we made some bad ones before we made good ones. But eventually it worked. It worked because it didn't. We adapted. The biggest distinction I've noticed between Brown and everywhere that lies beyond those gates is this allocation of trust. It's inherent here, and thank goodness for that, because we needed that trust given how much we are destined to experiment, explore, and likely to fumble throughout our time here. We needed that trust to push through our inevitable periods of uncertainty. When I told people outside of Brown that I planned to take a semester off from school, I got regarded with more than a healthy dose of skepticism. People asked me a lot of logistical questions. Do you have a job? Won't you graduate late? My peers at Brown, you guys, asked questions of a different nature, ones that opened up conversations. You wanted to talk about what I hope to see, to feel, to find. What will you do first, you asked. The important distinction here is not that Brown students ask exponentially more interesting questions than everyone else, though that does tend to be true. More significant is the fact that my peers at Brown regarded me with that underlying sense of trust. Trust that if I wanted to, of course I'd find a way to make my time off worthwhile. Here's the good news. Even outside of Brown, trust can be earned. Trust can be earned. The Brown mentality can come with us wherever we go next, if we're smart enough to wield it wisely, and if we adapt our tactics to fit our new settings. We certainly had to adapt. It's not working. We certainly had to adapt when we first arrived at Brown and we can do it again now that we're leaving. We can do it without relinquishing our newfound confidence and creativity. Now, I wouldn't be a Brown student if I didn't toe the line between independence and insubordination. But in learning how to strike that balance, I've come to appreciate that it is possible to keep your head up and do good work. So, in the face of that demoralizing advice that I got in Washington, I decided to adapt the words of wisdom to better suit my needs. I didn't expect the workplace to operate like a Brown seminar, but I did expect the freedom to keep my head up so I could see where I was going and see where I wanted to go next. It took time, and it wasn't easy. My voice started off more than a little shaky, and my first few ideas simply missed the mark. And my jokes, they fell flat again and again. But I kept at it. I kept seeking to learn and adapt, even when feeling a little bit uncertain. I had to earn my coworkers' trust before getting a seat at the proverbial table. And eventually, I did. Now that we're graduating, and so on the brink of starting something new, we're at risk of being timid, of introducing only the most polished versions of ourselves to the world. It's these moments when we're tempted to keep our heads down rather than bring up our out-of-the-box ideas that it's most important for us to think back on our Brown experiences. If the cushion of trust was what made us so bold here, we must walk out of the Van Wickle gates with an unshakable trust in ourselves. Everyone else will come around in time. For now, we can all agree on this. Whether we'll be teaching or investing or in a coffee shop or a boardroom, it'll be worth bringing ourselves wherever we go next. Congratulations, 2013. Woo!